Namaste. In this video, we shall look at the biggest and the last of the Mukhya Upanishads, which is the Brihadaranya Upanishad. The Brihadaranya Upanishad is the largest of the Upanishads. It consists of 6 adhyayas. Adhyayas are chapters, which are themselves made up of Brahmanas, which are sub-chapters. So there is an adhyaya. A particular adhyaya has various Brahmanas under it, and each Brahmana is a collection of verses. So that is how they structure it. It's a voluminous work. It's a huge Upanishad. The adhyayas are again grouped into 3 kandas. The first two, I told you there are 6 chapters. So the first 2 chapters, the first 2 adhyayas are called the Madhu Kanda. The third and fourth adhyaya, the next 2 are considered to be the Muni Kanda, and the fifth and the sixth are considered to be the Khila Kanda. So that is another division which we see in the Upanishad, another grouping rather that we see. The Mahavakya Aham Brahmasmi, which is I am Brahman, is found in the 10th Brahmana of the first adhyaya. So this is an introduction. There are 2 topics which have been mentioned in the next syllabus to be covered under Brihadaranya Upanishad. And the first of those is the concept of Atman and Jnana Yoga. Now, the Atman or Brahman is famously defined using negation as Neti Neti, not this, not. Okay, there's a typo there again. My apologies. Should not know this. It's not this, not this in this Upanishad. Now, Neti Neti, because it says that you cannot know Brahman as a positive entity because you cannot objectify it. It is always the subject. We also saw in the Keno Upanishad that it was mentioned that the self or Brahman is different from the known and beyond the unknown. It is not an object which can be known or not known. It is the pure subject. It is the pure witness. So one cannot speak in terms of strictly speaking, knowing it or not knowing it, because you can't do that. You cannot objectify the self. So, which is why in the Brihadaranya Upanishad, we find the famous definition, Neti Neti. The Neti Neti approach is given here. It is mentioned in 2 places. And Neti Neti is to say that you can only know Brahman as not this. You can only say it is not this. You cannot say that this is Brahman. You can only say this is not Brahman. So that is the approach that is followed in the Brihadaranya Upanishad. And that is one of the way that Brahman is defined, that you can only know it as not this. So that we find in the Upanishad. The Upanishad contains a conversation between Yajnavalkya and his wife Maitreyi, where Yajnavalkya says that it is for the sake of the Atman that one loves everything else. A small background about this. So it comes in the form of a story where Yajnavalkya, the great rishi, he has 2 wives. One of them is Katyayani and the other one is Maitreyi. He's a family man, he's a householder, and he decides that he's going to take sannyasa, that he wants to renounce the life of a grihastha, a family man, and go to take up sannyasa, renunciation. So he tells his wives, to both his wives, that see, I've decided that I'm going to be renouncing everything, and whatever property I have, whatever wealth I have, I shall split it between you 2 equally, and with that you can be happy. Now Katyayani happily accepts it and goes away, but Maitreyi asks Yajnavalkya, dear husband, the wealth that you're giving me, that I'm going to be inheriting from you, will that make me eternally happy? Will that give me everlasting peace and happiness and bliss? And Yajnavalkya replies saying, no, it won't do all that. It will only make you wealthy, and you will be like other wealthy people around there. You won't be eternally happy or anything of that sort. Then Maitreyi replies saying that, then what is the point of this? If it won't give me everlasting happiness, then why should I accept it? Then what purpose does it serve? And then she asks Yajnavalkya, you teach me about that which will give me everlasting happiness. You teach me about that self, about the Atman, about the reality knowing which one goes beyond suffering and sorrow and attains everlasting happiness. You teach me about that. That is what I'm after. I do not need your wealth. I only need everlasting happiness. And then Yajnavalkya replies saying that, Maitreyi, you were already very dear to me. And now that you've asked me such a question, you've become more dear to me. And then he goes on to teach her about, the self and Brahman and all that. The teaching starts from there. And one of the most popular ideas from the Brihadaranya Upanishad is found in this teaching, where Yajnavalkya says that the reason why a person loves anything or anybody is because of their love for the self. Nava are sarvasya kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati, atmanastu kamaya sarvam priyam bhavati. It means it is not for the sake of everything that everything is loved. Everything includes whatever things that we love, whatever people we love. It is not for their own sake that we love them. It is not what we may very proudly call as unconditional love. There is always a condition. The condition is that we love ourselves. The love for ourselves, our own self, is unconditional, and it is that love for the self which makes us love things and people around us. He gives a huge list. He says, it is not for the sake of the husband that the husband is loved by the wife. It is not for the sake of the wife that the wife is loved by the husband. It is not for the sake of the child that the mother loves the child. Goes on like that. Basically, the idea is that we love things and people which make us happy. So it is the happiness of the self which we primarily love. We love being happy. We love being contented. We love being praised. We love being taken care of. And whenever we find these qualities in other people or things, we love them. So the idea is that our love for the self, the love for Atman, is unconditional. And all other love, whatever other things that we may love, they are always conditional. We always love them because we love the self. So that is the idea he presents. And he says that the Atman is the basis of love. It is because of Atman that all other loves take place. In other words, it is only the love for the self that is unconditional. Now, this is also the reason why you will also find the idea that a person who realizes the self, when he becomes self-realized, develops love for all beings and all creatures. He develops an all-encompassing love. He just becomes a very loving person. He does not hate anything. It is because he realizes that the Atman that he is, that is his very self, is the substratum of everything else, is to be found everywhere. They see the self in everything and everything in the self. That is the expression we find in the Isha Upanishad. They develop a sense of Samadarshana, as we see in the Bhagavad Gita. They see everything as the self. They see everything as one. And because the love for the self is unconditional, since they see the self everywhere, they develop unconditional love towards everything. You and I, people without getting that sort of a self-realization, there is no sense in us speaking of unconditional love. Our love is always conditional. We love things because of certain factors, because of certain reasons. There is always a because of, which is involved in it. But the love of a person who's self-realized, who is a person who's an Atmajnani, who realizes the self, that is unconditional. That is another idea we see. This reminds me of an episode in the life of Swami Vivekananda. I am not sure if this actually happened. I heard about this incident spoken by a sannyasin belonging to the Ramakrishna order. It seems that once Swami Vivekananda's devotee, one of his devotees, she wrote to him in a letter saying that, amongst other things, she mentioned that I've understood the crux of your teaching, which is that everything is God. I've understood this is what you're talking about, and I've understood it, that everything is God. And Swami Vivekananda replied, saying that I've never taught you such a strange doctrine. I've never given you such a teaching. I've never taught something like this. And then he himself clarifies, saying that I've only taught you that all is not, God alone is. All is not, God alone is. He does not say that all is God. He says the all is not. There is no distinction at all. There is no all in the sense that there is you and there is him and her and different things around. The distinction does not exist at all. What exists is only God or the Atman or Brahman. So he says that the all is not and God alone is. So that is what he says. It's a very subtle change that he makes to the statement. So that is the state of the Brahmajnani. It is not that they see things as different separate entities, but still realize that there is an underlying unity behind them in an intellectual manner. They see that their whole experience is an experience of oneness. They see that whatever distinction that we may see from our point of view, it does not really exist. The distinction does not. It is not a true distinction. That is their realization. That again takes me to another episode in the life of Kanchi Paramacharya, the erstwhile Shankaracharya of Kanchi Kamakoti Peetham. It seems like a person once came up to him and asked him, how should we treat others? How do we behave with others? And Paramacharya's answer was very direct and short, simple, and at the same time extremely profound. His answer was, there are no others. That was his answer. His answer was, there are no others. Don't say, when you say that there are others, when you've already made that distinction that this is me and these are others, this is me and this is not me, you've missed the point. The point is that distinction does not exist. That is the point of Vedanta. And these things that, to see everything as the self and to realize oneness, these are not merely prescriptive ideas that one has to, tell oneself that, the the consciousness that we have is one, that the Atman is everywhere. These are not things that one has to tell oneself, repeatedly and convince oneself, and then, that shapes our behavior. That is not the point. Vedanta speaks of all these, at least Advaita Vedanta speaks of all these as facts. These are not simply things that we need to convince ourselves of. These are not things that we need to intellectually understand. These are things that which are to be experienced. Advaita is an experiential truth. That is what they say. So a person who is self-realized, he literally experiences himself as everything and everything as himself. And that is why he develops unconditional love for everything, because to him it is nothing apart from his self. And love for the self is unconditional. That is the point which we find in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad spoken by Yajnavalkya to his wife Maitreyi. So I was just expanding on that point, that this is a very popular idea that we see in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, one of the more popular ideas from this Upanishad, that the love for the self is unconditional. Yajnavalkya presents the gist of Jnana Yoga when he says that the Atman alone should be heard of, reflected on, and meditated upon. When we covered the different streams of yoga, we saw that there are 3 stages mentioned in the Jnana Yoga sadhana. They are Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana. Shravana is to hear the truths, to know about them, to read about them or hear about them. Manana is to reflect on them and understand them. And meditate, and Nididhyasana is to meditate on them and make them a living truth for us, to realize their truth. So that is Nididhyasana. That is the final stage after which one gets knowledge. So this threefold Jnana Yoga sadhana we find mentioned in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. It is from the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad that this is taken, where we see Yajnavalkya telling his wife that it is the Atman alone that should be heard about, that one has to perform Shravana, Manana, Nididhyasana on the Atman. And it is by knowing the Atman that everything is known. This is again an idea which we see in the Mundaka Upanishad. What is that by knowing which everything can be known? Kasminu bhagavo vijñāte sarvamidam vijñātam bhavati. What is that one thing by knowing which one can know everything? The answer is the Atman, which Yajnavalkya says here. That it is by knowing the Atman through Shravana, Manana, and Nididhyasana that one knows everything. So that is the idea of the concept of Atman and Jnana Yoga in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. The next topic is about the union of the Atman and Paramatman. Now, the statement or the Mahavakya, Ayam Atma Brahma, which we find in the Mandukya Upanishad, is also found in the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad, and which means that the self is Brahman. And we also find the Mahavakya associated with the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is Aham Brahmasmi, which means I am Brahman. And it says that he who realizes the truth behind the statement Aham Brahmasmi becomes the entire universe. In other words, he becomes Brahman. We find the idea in the Mundaka Upanishad that Brahmaveda Brahmaiva Bhavati. He who knows Brahman becomes Brahman. The knower of Brahman becomes Brahman. So that is the idea, that one who realizes the truth that I am Brahman becomes the entire universe, becomes the reality behind the entire universe, realizes that he is in fact the substratum on which the entire universe plays out. So that is the idea I tried to convey. The Upanishad declares that the Atman and the Paramatman are one and the same, and it is this realization that liberates a man. So this is about the union of the Atman and Paramatman. Now I have to tell you that the topics mentioned in the the syllabus, Net Yoga syllabus, are extremely vague, very inconveniently vague. And this is a huge book. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is big enough to be used as a pillow. And to search for this topic without any reference, they have not mentioned from which chapter one has to find this. Nothing has been mentioned. They've just mentioned union of Atman and Paramatman. There are so many places where this is spoken of. Similarly, there are so many places where the concept of Atman and Jnana Yoga is spoken of. I've just taken out what I felt were the more important or the most important points regarding these topics, and I've presented in this video. I think this should be sufficient when we come to the NET examination. The Brihadaranyaka Upanishad has a lot to do. There is one opinion that the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is the work of sage Yajnavalkya itself. I'm just presenting this point. So if there is a question which says which Upanishad speaks of the Rishi Yajnavalkya, the answer is Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. There are the third and fourth adhyayas of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad speak about Yajnavalkya. There is a debate which happens in the third adhyaya where Yajnavalkya debates with various scholars and finally emerges victorious. And in the fourth adhyaya, there is a conversation between Yajnavalkya and Janaka. So Yajnavalkya repeatedly features in this Upanishad. It's a huge Upanishad, and he features in multiple places. There is also the story which I mentioned about Yajnavalkya and his wife Maitreyi. So the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad is associated with Rishi Yajnavalkya. Some people say that he was the author of it, but that is, as far as I know, that is not the traditional belief. We believe that the Upanishads were not created by anybody. But I'm just presenting this so that in case you get a question regarding this, you might know about this. And also, this is another point. In the third Adhyaya, we find a mention of a person called Gargi. Now, she's a woman and she's considered to be a Brahmavadini. She's a debater on Brahman. She's called Gargi Vachaknavi, the daughter of Vachaknu. And she's considered to be a Brahmavadini and she debates with Yajnavalkya. Yajnavalkya debates with multiple other people, but Gargi is also one of them. And we see that, you know, that women were given equal, standing when it came to knowing Brahman and all that, that they were, it is not that they were restricted from attaining this knowledge, none of that. She was a person who debated as an equal amongst the other people found in the debate forum. And we also see interestingly that she has two debates with Yajnavalkya, and at the end of a second debate she's the one who says to the others that I have tested Yajnavalkya enough, and there is no shame in you all worshipping him because he is really a wise man and he cannot be defeated in a debate because I have tested him. She gives the OK seal approval. So we see the standing she had amongst the other people in the forum. There was no discrimination because she was a woman, nothing of that sort. She's considered a Brahmavadini, a debater on Brahman. So that is another idea. The Upanishad where Gargi features is the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So this is about the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. I think these will be the main points of the Brihadaranyaka Upanishad. So with that, we finish the last of the Mukhya Upanishads, and our series of videos on the Mukhya Upanishads gets over with this. So thank you.